Hi, and welcome to Nisi's Food Journey. Today I want to start by giving a shout out to Cat Moon Books. She decided to cook my Indian butter chicken and she said it turned out great. Thanks so much, Cat. Today we're going to make meatball and sausage with basil baked ziti. And here's what we're going to need. I'm using some Italian sausage. For the meatballs, some ground beef and some ground pork. For the sauce, I need some red wine. Of course, we need basil and ziti. Ricotta cheese, I add a little bit of goat cheese to this. Crushed tomatoes, Parmesan cheese, and mozzarella cheese. Let's get started. My sous chef today will be my husband, and he's going to start by grating up all the cheeses so that we can make the meatballs. Like I said, we like to use a mixture of ground pork and ground beef. I find it to be much more flavorful this way, and juicy and tender. So now we're going in with our ground beef. Next, we're going to season up the meatballs. I added some parsley. We're going to add some salt. I'm going to go in with some pepper. Now we're going to use some onion powder, some garlic powder. I didn't have any Italian seasoning, so I just used oregano. One egg. And we're going to go in with a pretty good amount of breadcrumb. That's probably a lot more than you think, but you need a lot of breadcrumb in these meatballs. Now we're going in with some Parmesan cheese, and we're going to mix everything together. And these meatballs are going to be rolled by hand, and they're very small, as you can see. We want them small so they can fit well in the ziti. You don't have to use a scale, but we went ahead and used a scale to make sure they were all approximately the same size. There you go. He did a real good job on these meatballs, let me tell you. Now I have my water boiling for my ziti. Actually, they don't have gluten-free ziti, so I have to use whatever I can get, which is penne in this case. It works just fine. I'm going to brown my sausages on both sides, but I'm not going to cook them all the way through. Once they're browned, I'm going to go ahead and add my crushed tomatoes. And I always add a little bit of red wine and some basil. And that's it. This sauce doesn't need anything else. It gets so much flavor from the sausage and eventually the meatballs. Gonna put a lid on it and let that go until the sausage is cooked. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and bake these meatballs. I think we did 375 for about 15 or 20 minutes until they reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees. Now the ziti is done, so we're going to add our ricotta cheese and my favorite secret ingredient that I've been adding for years, goat cheese. It's a very small amount, but it gives it such a nice robust and tangy flavor. I'm going to add a little bit more oregano, and we're just going to stir to combine. The heat of the sauce that we will eventually add will get rid of any lumps or clumps in that cheese. And speaking of the sauce, we are going to go ahead and take our sausage out, and we're going to cut them into bite-sized pieces, and then we're going to put them back in to finish cooking. We also added the meatballs to the sauce, and we're just going to let this go until everything's ready, until the sausage is ready. It's been about 20 minutes or so, and we're going to add the sauce to the ziti. You might notice I don't have a whole lot of sauce. It's mostly protein. I don't like my ziti to be very, very wet. I find it sogs it out too much. I like a very dry ziti. Now we're going to stir everything to combine. We also reserved a few slices of the sausage and a few meatballs to garnish the top with. I went ahead and I added a little bit of mozzarella to the mixture. And now we're going to put into our 9 by 13 baking dish. Our oven is still at 375. Go ahead and pour it in. There was a lot of ziti in this one. I make the top layer with a little bit of basil, and then I place a little bit of sausage on each piece of basil. And since I've never made this with meatballs before, I didn't know where to put them. So I just put them in between the sausage. This smells so good already. And it's not even completely baked through yet. We have, oh, hello, Spencer. We have Spencer. We have some Parmesan grated that we're going to top our ziti with. Looking good. And then we're going to finish it off with the rest of the mozzarella. There you go. And this is what it's going to look like before we put it in the oven. You might want to put a little sheet pan underneath in case it boils over a little bit. I did not add foil. I'm going to bake this at 375 for 45 minutes. Now it's done and the house smells so good. This is the hard part. You have to let it sit at least 20 minutes. Look at all that bubbling. Well, it has been 20 minutes, and because we let it sit, when we take it out of the pan, it's not going to fall apart and turn into soup. There you go. Look at that. I didn't do the greatest job plating this, but it did all stay together. And here you go. Meatball, sausage, and basil baked ziti. It was so creamy and delicious. And the Earl of Spencer, oh my goodness, did he ever want some? My husband did an amazing job. This was his first time ever making this. I usually just make it with the sausage, so this was kind of my first time too. The Earl of Spencer would very much appreciate if you would like this video and give it a subscribe. Thank you.